pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the notice requirements of the Open Public Meeting Act having satisfied, notice of date, time, and place of this meeting by annual notice were published in 2 newspapers, posted on the town municipal board, and filed with the office of the town clerk, all within the time limits prescribed by the Open Public Meetings Act. Can we have a roll call, Madam Secretary?
Clara Brito Herrera, Lara Hicks, Andres Garcia, David Hefferly,
Present.
Maria Hernandez, Johanna Benitez, Rizwan Hamid,
Present.
Jose Altecara,
Present.
Genaro Sanchez,
Here.
Miguel Borrego.
Present.
A quorum is present for the conduct of business at tonight's meeting, and I guess the first order of business is we have a motion to approve the minutes from the, there are no, we have no minutes. Okay, and we have no communications or reports to deal with, is that right, Ms. Varela?
Correct.
Okay. So then we have 3 payment vouchers, and if we could, we could take a motion for all 3 unless there's an objection to any of them.
I make a motion.
Second.
Any opposed? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the ayes have it, and we'll move those resolutions will be moved. And so the first order of business, though, was a continued application by Templo Fuente de Vida Corp. For 519 59th Street, Block 127, Lot 18 and 19. Is there anybody here on that application? Because we received a letter from the applicant requesting an adjournment, and therefore I would request a motion from the board to carry this matter to the next regularly scheduled meeting. What's the date of the next
May
meeting?
11th.
May 11, 2015 at 6:30 p.m. in this room. May I have a motion for that?
Motion.
And second? Any opposed? Okay, then members of the public, you're hereby notified that the application for the Templo Fuente de Vida Corp. is being carried to May 11 at 6:30 p.m. in this room, and you'll receive no further notice other than the notice you're receiving at this time. And so then we can proceed with the first application, 11A on the agenda for Giovanni Grana. And council's here on that matter.
Good evening, board members.
Before you begin, may we have a motion for someone to chair the meeting for tonight? Someone? Okay. You're moving? Okay. For Mr. Happily?
Yeah.
Who moved it?
Okay, any opposed? Okay, then Mr. Happily, you kindly chair our
Make a
meeting.
motion, I'm
It is-
sorry. Yeah.
Maybe let me get there. Okay.
Good evening, Senator.
Good evening, board members. Louis Diaz for the applicant. Jurisdiction, I believe, was obtained at the last hearing. I still have some mail.
You can give that to Ms. Varela. And your publication certification was filed last meeting.
Correct.
Right. This is the application, 610 61st Street?
Correct, lot 33, block 148, Johannes Grama. I have here as my expert, Mr. Izquierdo. If I could have him on the podium. Mr. Izquierdo would act, he's a licensed architect and also planner. He will act as the architect. I believe that the architect in this matter, Martha Rodriguez, was not able to come, so she has asked Mr. Izquierdo to go through with the application, and he will also testify as a planner.
Okay, and you've been qualified before this board before as an architect and a planner, sir?
Yes, I believe I have
Okay, is
been.
there any objection to Mr. Izquierdo to testify as an expert in the area of planning and architecture for tonight's hearing? Okay, then you're so qualified, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Yes, please, sir.
Just when the testimony you're about to be able to recuse the whole truth and nothing but the truth, nothing but the truth.
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Just state your name and address, please.
My name is Jose Izquierdo, architect number 0913, planner 03385, 207 68th Street, West New York, New Jersey.
Mr. Chairman, there's a few housekeeping items to take care before we start the application.
Okay, what are they?
There are, on my letter of March 16th, you'll note there are 6 completeness issues that I'm recommending be waived and the application, for the application to proceed. I believe those completeness items can be, the waivers can be granted without, while still providing the board enough information to hear the case, but not requiring the applicant to expend more than they need to produce the application.
This is on your March 16th letter?
March 16th, top of page 3, completeness comments. Section 258-9C, I'm recommending waivers for items 6, 7, 9, 18 through 20, 22, and 23. And again, those are details that really don't apply to the particular application.
Okay, is there any objection or anybody have any comment about requiring those items, or is the board willing to waive those items based upon the advice of the planner? We can have a motion to waive those items.
I make a motion to waive them.
Second.
Anybody opposed? Okay, then you can proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Ivanovich. Good evening, members of the board. Marta Rodriguez, the architect for the project, has asked me to testify on behalf of the drawings.
And before you do, Mrs. Izquierdo, I would just like to ask you if you're familiar with the location of
Yes,
this
I am.
application. And
Yes,
you're
I am.
familiar with the plans that are being submitted.
Yes, I am.
Could you go ahead and explain the architectural part of the presentation?
Yes. There were two drawings that were submitted for the application. Originally, there was a drawing just showing the first 3 floors of the 3 floors of the building, and then subsequently there was an additional drawing showing the elevations of. And thank you, Mr. Ivanovich, for those conditions waived. The original drawing actually had the office for the acceptance of the children and the parents on the 2nd floor, and later on the drawings were revised so that the office and the reception area are on the ground floor. This is a 2-family house, actually a newer 2-family house, presumably built sometime during the 1990s or 2000. It's a brand new house. And the house as such meets all the conditions of the zoning ordinance because the house was built further to a permit granted by the board. This board gains jurisdiction of this application because this is a conditional use, but it's a use that is approved with conditions to be set forth by the planning board. Since it is a conditional use and it is an allowed use, municipal land use law qualifies that all the positive criteria have been met, since actually a daycare center of an educational character is an inherently beneficial use. And the zoning ordinance actually recognizes that it is inherently beneficial. However, there are a number of conditions associated with the use, not that the conditions of kill the use, but that the conditions have to be satisfied in order for this daycare to properly function within the neighborhood. What the applicant proposes is to take the ground and 2nd floor of the 2-family house and actually take the ground floor and use it for institutional daycare, meaning children that are less than 2.5 years of age, basically babies, infants, and toddlers. The 2nd floor would be of an educational character, meaning that they would be children that are 2.5 years or older. The applicant is proposing to have a second means of egress in the back of the building via a new stair that would gain exit egress from the 2nd floor down and onto the rear yard of the property and then onto the public right of way via any one of the 2 side yards. Both side yards are presumably, one is 3 feet 1 and the other, I believe, is I believe they're both 3 feet 1. The ground floor actually has to be made adaptable to not to the handicap, but institutional use in the building code requires accessibility further to American National Standards Institute, and that bathroom has to be made accessible. The second floor, of course, the bathtubs and all those things are being eliminated because there's not gonna be any residential use on the second floor. The applicant in this application is going to live on the third floor of the building. So essentially, if the planning board grants this application, you will have a daycare, owner-operated, that lives on the third floor of a building, with the daycare being of educational character on the second floor and institutional on the ground floor. One of the comments that the planner had mentioned is that the drawing showed 2 cars on the driveway apron before what is properly now a garage, a 2-car garage, that is going to be converted to an office and the reception area. Those 2 cars are actually going to be used by the applicant when she is upstairs, but actually during the hours of operation, those 2 cars are not gonna be there. Actually, the applicant has entered into an agreement with the church, a parking lot directly to the east of this property, so that the drop-off of children and the pickup of children in the morning and afternoon hours respectively can occur in that parking lot.
If I may, just to point further the issue that you're bringing forward, I have some pictures of the property and the parking lot next to it that my niece.
These pictures are the same ones that are on the plan, aren't they correct?
They are similar.
Yes.
They're not exactly the same ones, but they are pretty similar. They just show a wider angle, and that's why I wrote it in.
Do you have a lease proposal also for the church agreement?
Yes, there is a lease that has been proposed. I don't have it here in the file with me, but my client told me that yes, there is a lease.
And how many children do you expect will occupy this daycare?
I have my client here that would, with a teacher, that are going to be working on the site. I could have her testify to the amount of children and how they're going to be distributed to the first floor and the second floor.
But how many can she max out with?
What the drawings show, what the architect has calculated, is to have and that's shown on drawing A1, which is sheet A1, A1 of 2, shows, I believe, 35 children and 5 employees, if my vision doesn't fail me.
In the 2 floors combined?
38 and 5 in the 2 floors combined.
38 and 5 or 35?
38 children in the 2 floors combined with 5 employees.
So there's about 1,250 square foot per floor?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
that's the calculation by the standards?
The
If you were
state of the operator.
But not during the hours of operation.
Correct. From 7 in the evening to
6 a.m.
6
Yeah,
a.m.
at that point, who
Nighttime.
cares?
Correct.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Okay, so that's part of it. So you're proposing that this area in the front
Be
not
open.
not even be used for drop-offs?
No. I believe that would meet the positive criteria. I'm trying to meet the positive criteria for the application.
Well, I understand it. I
Yes.
understand that, you know, the limitations of the site and all, so I just want to be clear about what, you know.
So what are we gonna use the apron for then? It's not gonna be used as a drop-off. What will it be used for then?
Even the children can play there.
Okay.
I mean, it has to be cordoned off. There has to be
So
safety.
definitely, you guys have access to the church driveway.
That is the application.
That's gonna have to be, and that could be in a condition. If we approve this, that would definitely be a condition.
It has to be, that's the way that the application is catered.
And you will have at least five spots, is that what the understanding is?
Correct.
All right, and your applicant will come testify about that?
Yes.
Now, Mr. Ferrer, if that's put as a condition, if the lease is not renewed at some point in the future,
Then
then
they have to come back
then
for
the daycare has to
modification.
close.
That's right. Yeah, that's a great point. Right, exactly.
In addition to that, and based on that, as a planner, my opinion is that the use is not gonna be detrimental to public health, safety, morals. The site can actually accommodate all the appurtenances of the daycare center because it's going to allow, actually, and because occurs within a residential unit, the children are going to be like in a home-like environment because they're gonna be able to look out the window, they're gonna feel maybe their home is similar to this, hopefully. So the use is not gonna cause any injurious to any neighboring property. It's going to enhance the location. It actually has that advantage of the parking lot next to that, and it's compatible with the surrounding uses. Actually, all of the area, other than a few industrial zones here, it's all residential, a lot of multi-families. All of these are 2 and 3 family homes. As again, this is parking. So this is actually the only property on this side that has front yard parking, has a garage, which is going to be eliminated. There's another church here. So even though when you drive by, you don't realize that it's totally residential, 61st Street is totally residential on this site. And I believe that the applicant meets the negative criteria by addressing the potential hazards of drop-off of the children. And I have nothing further.
Does anyone else have questions for Mr. Izquierdo?
Any questions?
Any question? This block, the block 148 and the block 144.
Yeah, 144, the
I
other one
suppose
was-
in the block 144, the bigger the low income, no?
No, 147 is the Franklin Delano Roosevelt building.
Okay.
That has 103 units.
Oh,
That's an 8-story
okay.
building.
That's okay.
Yeah, and it has a parking lot here.
You know what, let's do it right now. We just have the architect / planner, right?
Yes.
Describe the project.
I'd like to open up to the public. If anybody has any questions for the architect / planner, feel free.
I have a question.
Come on up, state your name and address, please, for the record.
Good evening. My name is Robert Zapata. I live in 6021 Jefferson Street, which is right in that area. And application, you said?
No, just your
Okay. My question is in regards to traffic. I grew up, been living in that area for 28 years now.
Okay.
And lately it's getting a lot more congested with traffic. So how would this impact our traffic? Has there been some kind of test study done by a licensed engineer?
What time are you talking about that it's congested?
Usually during the time where people are getting out of work. So there's around the time where people are leaving to work, coming back from work, around stuff like the times of pick up and drop off. We live in a 2-family house with family, relatives, and they all pretty much have cars. So that's, that's an issue as someone who lives in the area of, parking, traffic, things of that nature. So has there been any studies done of this area in regards to traffic?
I'm not a traffic expert.
Has there been any licensed engineer to test that or kind of?
I'm not licensed to.
No, I know you're not, but has there been?
What is it that you want the licensed engineer to test?
Well, to see if there's, the traffic, if he's out there, I'm not sure what their job is, but, they have to see like going, what certain times is best, it's as a resident that lives there, the last thing I want is to come out and be stuck in traffic, just trying to turn to the right, to go down the regular line. That's my question.
Mr. Zapata, do you live on 61st Street?
61st, no, I live in 60th
No,
Jefferson.
you live in Jefferson. And I'm gonna point out where Jefferson is. Is that correct on that map? Just pointed it out. It runs north-south between 61st and 60th. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And your house is the one shown here on the dot, which is the first one on the west side of Jefferson between 61st and 62nd?
Yes.
I'm sorry, 61st and 60th.
Next to the multifamily.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And facing your property, the
Yes.
property that you live in, there is a structure which runs north-south, touches the north side of the property that you live in, which is a 4-story high building. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And that structure houses a daycare center.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, 4 stories, daycare center.
Correct.
That's a very big daycare center,
Yeah,
correct?
it used to be a firehouse, so that, yeah,
It used to be a firehouse. Do they have any parking that you know of?
that I know of, no.
No, no parking whatsoever.
Correct.
Now, when that firehouse was turned into a daycare and came before the board, the same issue of traffic arose.
Okay.
Did it not?
I was
Same issue- The same issue that you're talking about here with traffic,
Okay.
it arose at that time.
All right.
Did that bother you at that time?
At that time, I was going between work, so I worked in a different spot, and I would come to sleep over at my mom's house at times. But traffic still bothers me. Regardless, traffic bothers me. The fact that I live right here, I had to come this way to make a right, because I can't come the other way. So.
No,
I
it's a
wish-
one-way street,
Yeah.
obviously, you cannot go that way.
Exactly.
But if the same situation was present at that time as it is now, but you did not come to this board to complain about the traffic, did you?
Correct, you are
Did
correct.
you? Say yes or no question?
I said you are correct.
Yes, okay. Do you know the owner of that daycare center?
Yes, I know the owner.
Are you friends with them?
I'm using acquaintance, yes.
The acquaintance, you just know
We know each other.
them? Okay. Has there been any transactions going on between yourself or a member of your immediate family and the
You can just
owner
ask the
of that?
question, right?
Excuse me?
You could ask the question.
I did. Has there been?
My mother, which was your client, had a agreement with the owner of the daycare.
And his
To
name?
use for any,
Whose name is?
it's Lenny,
Lenny who?
Lenny Calvo.
Lenny Calvo, okay. And what happened?
The agreement was clear, so that he's using.
Wait, where are we going with this?
I
Well,
don't
I'm
understand.
just going that there is a relationship here, there was money
Right.
exchange,
Okay, Mr. Zapata,
Right.
just point your house out again.
So according to this, is this one.
So for you to leave your house, you have to go left.
I need to go, yeah, I come out left, either I
Where do
go
you go?
straight up to Kennedy Boulevard.
Okay. So
Or
if you
I go
don't,
to
if you don't. Okay.
Berkeland is,
Over there.
This
No,
one.
you cannot make a left,
I
you
know.
have to make a right.
I make a left out of my driveway.
Oh,
make
yes,
a right.
yes.
So your only conflict here would be if you were gonna make the right on 61st.
Or going straight up, yeah.
Well, going straight up, you would be,
Then I have to go
you'd
like
be
that.
before the site.
Yeah. But my question was about traffic. I'm not sure why he was asking about my personal relationship of any of that matter.
well, because if there's an
I-
issue of traffic
I-
now, it was an issue
So
of
Let's
traffic
let's
then.
wait for the operator, sit
Yeah.
tight, let's wait for, because there's no answer. for you.
Yeah, there's no, answer.
Let's
That
wait
was
for,
my question.
yeah, let's wait for the operator to come up, and let's talk about the operator, about what they project, about where the people are coming from, how they're getting there, and those sorts of
And
things.
then parking, now Jersey becoming a very snowy
Yeah.
area, parking is also gonna be an issue. That's,
But they have the parking,
Lot.
right next to them, so
Okay.
that's a lot better than what the other garage supplied.
okay,
They have nothing.
alright.
So that's why we were gonna sit down with them, if this will be approved, so that'll be a condition upon that approval. And if they can't guarantee that, they don't get approved.
It's just a simple question, not understand
No,
why
no,
I'm being
we
attacked.
understand, I just don't know where this was going, this is not our issue.
So
Exactly.
the applicant will testify, so why don't you sit,
Right.
why don't you sit tight and maybe listen to that testimony? We'll try to get some of your questions answered, you have the right to come back,
Right.
question the
I'll
applicant.
ask a question after.
Yeah, absolutely,
Okay,
absolutely.
thank you.
Anybody else from the public like to come forward to question Mr. Izquierdo? Okay, then we can see your next witness.
Ms. Grana,
Oh, okay.
I think you wanted to ask some questions of the operator.
I think the operation would be very important, yeah. Why don't we
Please.
swear Mrs. Ryan?
State your name and your address, please.
She swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, nothing but the truth. Can I have your name and your address, please?
Giovanni Grana. My address is 610 Street. And what's your address?
Ms. Grant, I'm just gonna ask you to keep your voice up,
Be careful with this.
okay, so the people in the audience who are interested can hear you, okay?
Ms. Grana, you live at the location for in this application, 601-63, correct? And you are bringing this application before the board in order to have the ground floor and the first floor turn into a daycare center, which you will operate. Is that correct?
Yes.
There's some questions that would like to be asked of you. Go ahead.
Okay, so your hours of operation will be
6 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Monday through Friday?
Monday to Friday.
And have you determined exactly how many employees you will have?
state, recommend, I mean, the state,
What the state approved,
approved, yes.
So aside from you, are you going to work there as well? Yes?
yes.
So aside from you, there's going to be about, at least maybe 5 other employees?
Yes.
And do you know where those people will park,
Well,
the employees?
Let me just reiterate, are those employees that you envision, are they coming from outside of town and will be needing private transportation and parking their cars? Or do you envision and think that they are going to be from the neighborhood?
the neighborhood.
And you have one of those employees here now, correct?
Correct.
And she lives in the neighborhood.
In the neighborhood, yes.
She lives on which street? 70th Street?
65.
60th?
How about the children that will be coming? Where do you anticipate the children will be coming from?
Where would they live, the children that you hope to have in your daycare?
In my neighborhood.
Are you familiar with the daycare that council was pointing to before in the corner?
What, sorry?
Are you familiar with the other daycare that your council was referring to on the corner of Jefferson and,
No.
you're not familiar with that facility?
So Ms. Granite, do you know where that daycare center
Oh,
is?
yeah, I know which.
So you have seen it, you
yeah, I see the
recognize it?
daycare, but I mean, you're talking about the owner?
No, are you familiar?
Yes, I familiar, yes.
And how is that site impacted by that location? In other words, are the children walking to that daycare center? Are they being dropped off by car?
Yeah, see, walk and a drive, the people drive, mother, see the mother drive up and, in front of the daycare? See, yes.
At what time?
7 o'clock. And they're coming, to pick up like around 5:30, 6 o'clock, 7.
How many cars do you think on average in the morning are they dropping off?
Sometimes I see like 4.
4 cars?
Yes.
So it's not a big impact upon your present location then, in terms of traffic?
The traffic?
I'm talking about the site, the daycare center that's in that neighborhood is not impacting your neighborhood with traffic.
I think the question is the 4 cars or the 4 children that get dropped off, does that would impact your setup on the Parliament Street?
Or will it add traffic to 61st Street?
Well, I'm so tired, in the daycare, it's talking the daycare. it's
I
sometimes
think
it's
they're talking about your daycare,
Oh, my
correct?
daycare? No, I don't understand the question.
Why don't you speak to her in Spanish, so she can understand what we're talking about?
Well,
She
But
doesn't
then how are we
speak
gonna
Spanish.
have it
No,
for
no,
the record?
no, no,
We need something for the record.
Well, Mr. Heffernan, why don't you rephrase your question one more time so
Correct.
Mrs. Ronick can understand it?
Who's gonna we'll have these, do a little
Oh,
translation.
we could, she understands.
Yeah.
Do you believe with your daycare, and right now you're gonna be opening and closing the same time as the other one down the street, if they currently have 4 cars, and you suppose they're gonna have 35 children also, how many cars do you anticipate that will come by you in the morning? How many
Cars.
parents will be dropping off their children there?
In my daycare,
Right.
like maybe 5.
Only 5 will be driven there, the rest are gonna walk? The parents are gonna take them there by wheelchair?
The rest of the children, other than the 5 that get dropped off, are going to be living in the
In the
neighborhood?
neighborhood, yes.
So they're
Maybe the-
basically neighborhood children and they don't come from across town?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Let me just see if you can grab this one.
Okay, right now, supposedly again, in the other daycare, they have 4 cars dropping off children. And you're gonna have the same amount of time that it's gonna open, it's gonna close. And you're gonna have 5 cars. Do you think between the 4 cars from the other guy and the 5 cars from you, and remember, your 5 cars are gonna go into the church parking lot,
For the church part, yes.
where they're not gonna be in there. Do you think this will add impact to the traffic?
No. No, in my chair, because I have a space.
And you completely understood what I asked you, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Ms. Grana, in front of your building, you're not going to have any parking?
Any part.
And you're not gonna have, you don't want drop off there either?
No, because I don't really need it. I have a space in
Sure.
the parking lot. Yes.
Okay, I understand that there's an agreement between you and the church for parking in that
I
lot.
have the lease.
Okay, may we see it?
Does she have copies, or is it just one lease?
No, that's,
You have
I'll
copies?
see the back page, see, no, this looks like an original. I'll provide that to,
So that's lease for how many years?
5 right now, 5 or something. 4 more.
5 with an option for 5 more? Is that what it is?
Mhm.
We're just trying to lessen the burden on 61st Street, because right now, the only complaint we have is that they have traffic.
Okay,
So we make everybody feel comfortable.
all right.
I don't see the option. So,
It's not stated there? Yeah.
no, it's a 5-year lease, and it's for staging of vehicles. Morning drop off and evening pickup during the hours of operation. But it's not for parking, it's just for staging, drop off and pickup. But I don't see a 5-year, I don't see a 5-year extension on here.
The option clause is not there, huh?
There's no option clause. But if the board were so inclined, you could make it a condition that that spaces be, that lease continue during the operation, and if it doesn't, then the applicant would have to come back to show that there is no impact without those spaces. That's your inclination.
That's a fair,
So if Ms. Grana, getting towards the end of the 5-year term, has a problem that she cannot renew this lease with the church, then Ms. Grana should come here, should get the application to us before the term runs out, so that you wouldn't have a interruption of your daycare.
correct.
But I mean, that's depending on what the board's inclination is. And then the other thing for the board to consider is whether you want to have any drop off in the front, which is not proposed now, which I agree with the architect and planner, is that that is a scenario. Very unique to not have to use that, and the other, and then you would have the condition of the lease, and then if the applicant wanted to have the opening through this wall on the side yard, that's another good arrangement, but if it happens, it's not part of the application. But if it could happen, I think it'd be even better, but it's not proposed this time, formally.
And what happens if we put that in as one of the conditions?
Well,
That an access could be a lot easier, and I'm sure she would be paying for it, and they would put a gate up there anyway. And this way, at operating hours, they open the gate and they close at the end of the day with a lock.
What if the church will not approve that?
Would the church approve?
Yeah,
Have you spoken to them?
yes, I spoke to him. He's the one told me about that.
Opening?
The
No.
opening. He's the one told me.
He told me.
Yes.
Because if we did approve this, we would approve with certain conditions, and these conditions have to be met. Okay?
And one of the questions I think the architect wasn't certain about, when a car pulls into that lot, is the car able to back up and come out the same way, or does the car have to back out?
Can they turn around
Yes, put
inside?
it there. They turn around the car.
And about how many spaces can be staged in there at one time?
Can be more than 5.
Okay.
more.
Because your lease doesn't give you any specific number of spaces, it just says you can use it for
No, the-
staging.
The people in the church don't let them use the whole, the whole area.
Not for parking, just for staging, drop off and
Yeah,
pick up.
drop-off and
So
drop off.
so in other words, you wouldn't be parking there during the day, and the teachers would not be parking there either.
Actually, the benefit to the church is that the children of the church have a priority to be within this daycare center. So what is the name of the daycare?
The blessing child.
The Blessed Child.
Kind of a symbiotic relationship between the church and.
Exactly. Yeah, they're compatible uses.
Okay, now we can bring up our
Anyone else on the board have any questions for Ms. Grana?
Any questions?
Can we open to the public for,
Open to the public again?
Can I just
Sir?
add a comment on the parking spot?
Come on up, come on up.
It's a public, member of the board.
State your name and address, please.
Okay, my name is Ada Asancio. I live in Asancio, A-S-E-N-C-I-O. I live in 22769 and Cottonburg. I'll be working for, you want to swear her in?
yeah, sure.
Swear the testimony you're about to give you the truth, the whole truth. Hi. I just wanted to state that, I'll be working for her. I am familiar with the church. I do visit, I have friends from the church, Pentecostal as well. I have gone to services in that church. I've been in the parking spot, I park there, and I'm just wanna clear up that when you go in the parking spot, if she wants to, or the architect decide, they could just, the parents could just go in one side of the parking spot, just use one side of the parking spot, and then in order to get out, they could reverse and just leave the parking spot. So instead of having the cars parked like this, they will park in a diagonal, and one side only, so this way when they're ready to back up, they could just go out, reverse, and then just.
She's describing a K-turn. She's describing a K-turn where the car would come in, would K, and then back.
So she will have to speak to the parents that if they want to use the parking spot from the church, they will only be allowed to park on one side of the parking spot in order to be able to get out. Now, in regards to the traffic, I don't think she will have any problems with the traffic because I travel a lot through that street, and so far, even with the daycare, I'm familiar with the daycare as well, I have not seen any trouble. I come from work, I drive everywhere to church through that street, and then until now, I have never stopped more than 5 minutes to wait for either the red light or that's it. But I never expected any traffic. So she has the parking spot. I don't think that would affect even, the parents are not gonna be double parked outside, and they're not gonna be with their emergency lights just to drop off the kids. And we will have, like, she has to tell them that as well, that there's no double park for the child's safety. They're not even allowed to have double park. So I don't think that will be a case on traffic, because the parents will in no time be double parked.
Got it. Okay. Anyone else from the public want to come forward and ask questions or present any testimony?
Sir?
Chief, they answered the questions I had.
Thank you,
I
sir.
pretty much just had questions.
Okay, do you have any more witnesses?
No, but if I can just bring some judicial notice, I guess, those of us that grew up here in West New York know the town, that 61st Street either has a light or a stop sign, all the way from Kennedy to Bergland Avenue. Either stop sign or red light.
Okay, then it's up to the board's deliberation then to approve or disapprove, or approve with conditions.
Guys, does anybody have any questions? Nobody, no questions? Then
The
no,
only
let's
thing I'm
close.
concerned is about the number of children in the premise.
That has nothing to do with them. That has the state of
The
New
state.
Jersey. Right. They will predicate how many children can apply with workers, employees,
Okay.
size, and everything else. Bathrooms, handicap, sprinklers, state will take care of all that. First, let's close the public. I'd like to make a motion to close the public portion.
Any opposed? All right, so moved. Then open deliberation for the board.
Deliberation for the board. Does anybody have any other input on this application? Does anybody have any conditions for this application?
With the,
Maybe there's a condition on that side.
with the expiry of the lease, we'll make conditions with it.
Okay. Can the attorney please elaborate on the conditions of the lease?
Okay, so the conditions are is that there will be no parking or drop-off of children in front of the site during the areas of, in the apron, during the hours of operation.
Okay.
And that the approval is subject to the continued lease between the applicant and the church. And so long as that lease is in effect, it's fine. If the lease expires and the applicant needs, because that's a condition of the application, if the applicant loses that lease, then the applicant needs to come back to this board to seek approval without the lease to see if it meets our requirements. So those were the, I think, the two conditions that we discussed.
Mr. Chairman, I just have a couple more. First is to coordinate the dates on the plans to make sure we have the right sheet that we're looking at. As Mr. Ferraro said, the drop-off issue should be made clear on the plans.
Remember what you said to coordinate, I'm sorry?
Coordinate the dates on the plans. The drop-off area needs to be removed or altered to show that there is no drop, specifically no drop-off permitted. The end of my letter made some notes of some dimensional inconsistencies on the plans. They should be resolved.
Okay.
And the plans should show that the bathtubs are gonna be replaced with a closet.
Okay, so then you would then present, if that, is that a motion by someone?
Anyone ready to make a motion?
Okay. On that basis for approval on those conditions?
I second.
Okay, does anybody have any comments? Roll call, please.
David Hepperly,
Yes.
Rizwan Hamid,
Yes.
Jose Alcantara,
Yes.
Gennaro Sanchez,
Yes.
Miguel Borrego.
Yes.
Okay, then what we would ask then is that you submit revised plans showing the coordination of the dates, the drop-off change, and the resolution of the dimensional requirements that the planner has at the end of his report,
And the bathtub.
and the notation about the lease, the condition, approval is conditioned upon the continuation of the lease.
Correct. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Counselor.
Thank you.
And I guess the next application is yours as well.
That's correct.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the first hearing, the matter of application 2014-12 filed by Carmen Calle, the property located 412 54th Street, block 84, lot 24. Application proposes to expand the lower daycare into the middle of the building. The upper level will remain a residential unit.
Good evening again, Mr. Luis Diaz, on the applicant. Again, at the last meeting, the jurisdiction was obtained. I do have a few more of the complaint, and I will give that to the board secretary. My expert in this application is Mr. Izquierdo, who will testify as an architect and then he will testify as the planner.
Okay, so, I'm sorry, Council, I'm gonna interrupt you, but we're gonna mark as A1, the plan that's dated June 4, 2014?
Correct.
Is that correct? Okay, there's been no revision to that plan?
I believe not.
No.
Those plans were drawn by
Oreste Valeria.
Oreste Valeria, and there have been no revisions to the plan. Is that correct, Mr. Lamarowitz?
I have a revision November 6, 2014.
That's a little bit too far into the past for me to remember, but yes, I do think that there was some.
Because of
something
the
that-
signage and the,
I think it was something that you mentioned back then, in November, you're correct.
So, oh, wait a second, I'm sorry, it is revised, 6/4/2014.
correct.
And, I'm sorry, issued 6/4/2014, revised 11/6/14, is that right?
That's what I have.
Okay, that's the one I'm looking at too. Okay. So, is that the same type of,
Yes,
is that new?
the same diagram that I had before. This is a planning
This is for
diagram.
this application.
For,
This is-
for the subject
Exhibit
location.
Why don't
A2.
you mark that A2, because it looks so much like the other one.
I know, because they're the same
You should use
symbols,
maybe
but it's
different-
completely
Maybe you
different.
could use like yellow for one or something. All right, why don't you mark that A2?
I did
Oh, you did it already? Okay,
04-15, yes.
very good.
I thought it was the same
No,
one.
but they have the same symbols, otherwise it would be confusing to the board.
So how big's the property?
25 by 100.
Before you start,
Swear
if
me.
I can, I want to give some history, because this application was before the board back in, January 2012. It was approved, the ground floor to be used as a daycare center, same situation. It's, what used to be a three-family home, two-family home with the ground floor, you're correct. The typical two-family home that was built back in the 70s and so forth. It is run by the owner of the property, Carmen Calle. She's here. She's been running the business since its approval back in 2012, and she's been in the daycare business for approximately 15 years, if not more. Anyway, going through.
The first floor is already a daycare.
The ground floor is already a daycare, correct?
For 15 years.
No, for 3 years, but
Oh.
she's been in the daycare business for 15 years.
And you want to make the second floor daycare as well?
That's correct.
And the third floor is going to remain an apartment?
Residential, correct.
Same as the last one?
Pretty much the same
She's
thing.
expanding the business.
Correct, correct.
Mr. Chairman, just as we did last time, we need to deal with the completeness waivers.
Okay.
In this application, due to the type of application, what's being requested, I'm suggesting completeness waivers for, in section 358-9C for items 6, 7, 8, 9, 11, 12, 14, and 23, as those are items that I don't believe would impact the application, and the board can still make a decision without that information.
Okay, so if anyone would like to make a motion to accept the waivers for those conditions?
I make a motion to.
Is there a second? Anybody opposed? Okay, then we'll proceed, and those conditions are waived.
Mr. Izquierdo was qualified at the
Yes,
last.
he's still qualified,
Mr.
unless you lost your qualification in the last meeting.
Hope not. Still sworn in?
Still sworn in.
Okay, Mr. Izquierdo, are you familiar with the plans that were done and drafted by Mr. Varela?
Yes, I am.
And are you familiar with the location of the subject application?
Yes, I am as well.
Could you explain to the board what it is that's being proposed?
This application, in terms of architectural, it is actually the conversion of a mixed-use building that is presently 2 residential units and 1 daycare of educational characteristics to be a mixed-use building of 1 residential unit with the second floor being educational for children older than 2.5 years, the ones that can walk down the stairs in an emergency, with children less than 2.5 years of an institutional character. The present operator of the daycare right now has only children 2.5 years of age. However, most of her clients, of course, are reproducing and are having children, and they would like their babies also to be there. So she sees the opportunity of expanding her profession, also a business, into the second floor by taking all the kids right now, moving them up, and then turning the ground floor into educational use. Again, the building has to be fully sprinklered, and the architect is actually proposing a stair in the back of the building as a second means of egress from the second floor. Again, because this will become a mixed-use building and the building will be fully sprinklered, there is no second means of egress required for the third floor.
It is fully sprinkled already.
It is already fully sprinklered because a 2-family for many years in West New York was required to be fully sprinkled. So a lot of the 2-family homes in West New York, thank God, they're fully
Are you
sprinkled.
changing anything on the ground floor?
No.
I could have.
Oh, yes, with the bathroom has to be turned to the handicap, which it already is.
I could have the applicant here in the event that some of the questions might be better answered by the applicant, be sworn in and
Oh, sure.
Maybe make it-
Yeah, bring her up,
make-
both at once.
make it a little bit quicker, presentation.
Please state your name and your address.
Good afternoon. My name is Carmen Calle Rudo.
I live
Spell
in
his last name, please.
C-A-L-L-E, and my other last name is L-U-G-O. I live in Port Falls, 54th Street, West New York, New Jersey.
Do you swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, as God?
Yes.
Thank you.
So no changes to the ground floor?
No change to the ground floor, is the bathroom is a handicap already. And we just be extended to the second floor.
And what's the total amount of children that you were able to care for at this location?
The occupancy right now of the ground floor is 23, and what the drawings show is that the second floor will have 30 for a total of 53. The application as it was submitted says 30 plus 21, but the state actually gave her 23 children on the ground floor. So it will be a total of 53 children, 23 plus 30. The building is already fully sprinklered, and there's a new second means of egress proposed in the back. And if I can just quickly jump into and put on my planner hat, the property is located on the northern side of 54th Street. And this area of 54th Street has every single zoning usage that the ordinance allows. This is the Burger Line zone, which is the CR retail service. So then you have the McDonald's here, you have the bank here, this is not Cobian Plaza, it's Cobiano Plaza. And then you have all the uses along Burger Line here, with this being the driveway for the bank. This area here is actually the RM zone. And the daycare center is a conditional use subject to planning board only in the RM zone. This area here is the light impact zone of 55th Street and Palisade Avenue, and this is one of the few residential high density zones of the town of West New York. You have here a church, you have La Pola, you have Laundromat, this is Manito, this is the Extra Supermarket, Aguila Multi Services, this is the Extra Supermarket parking lot. These are all very small two-family homes in substandard lots, which is the same situation that you find somewhere along 53rd Street.
What's across the street?
Across the street, you have multifamily building with 16 units, multifamily with 16 units, multifamily with 16 units. You have a parking lot here serving the warehouse industrial area here and martial arts. You have warehouse industrial here, warehouse industrial. You have multifamily here, partly ground commercial, partly ground commercial. So you have 58 units, 58, 16, 16, highly densely populated area.
A lot of potential customers.
Yes. And this is the site. Actually, there's another daycare next to the bank out here, outside of the 200-foot radius zone, and actually closer to Burger Line Avenue. And then there are actually three identical two-family houses, right? 1, 2, 3, or 2? 2. These two houses are identical. The one next door has a garage with the 2 front yard parking spaces.
How many employees do you have now?
Well, I have 6 employees, 3 of them, they are my niece, my mom, and my daughter, because she's going to college, so.
Do they all live in the neighborhood?
Yes.
Okay, so how many more employees do you anticipate?
Well, I had 2 more that they leave. One of them lives in, I think it's in Nürburgring, but she takes the bus. And I have another one, she lives like at the end of the boulevard, like 65th, so she walks to work.
Okay. So how many employees do you think you're gonna have altogether?
Altogether, well, like, 5 more, like, I would say 10
Altogether?
altogether.
Okay, and can you explain the drop-off procedure that you use?
Well, we use my driveway. The drop-off, I use the driveway. Yeah, my driveway, pick up and drop off.
So you have a driveway in front
Yes,
of
in
the
front of the building,
daycare?
Which is 18 feet.
Okay, so it's like one car?
Yes.
So how does this function during the day?
During the day, I only have, if I'm not mistaken, all my clients, they walk. They have like they're for the street, like even I have a few deliveries that they walk because they go to New York. So they drop their child and they just take the bus and Bergen Line. If I'm not mistaken, I only have like 3 or 5 just drive on different times.
So they pull into your driveway?
Yes.
And Then they pull out and leave.
pull out, it's like, there's different times. They
Where do you,
never-
where, do they bring the child in or does someone meet them at the car?
Well, sometimes they call us and saying, I'm gonna drop off my child, I'm late from work, and we do have the staff to walk and then get the children. Even the same thing, I'm like, can you get my child ready, just a block away, we have the child ready and we walk to them to the.
So you communicate
Yes,
like that?
Yes.
Anybody have any questions?
Daycare actually is an inherently beneficial use of its educational character. The applicant has the duty of proving the negative criteria. In my opinion, as a planner, it is actually the drop-off and the staging of the children that would create a situation of potential hazard to safety, public health, and whatever in this specific case. The use is compatible with the other residential uses in the area, and all of these, which are warehouse, industrial, and martial arts, they're very low-key. They're just like storage sort of spaces. It's not a high industry that you see trucks coming in and out. They're more like old storage buildings that at one point they will probably be turned into something else.
What are your hours, ma'am?
6:30 to 6:45.
Mr. Skidmore, just to recap what you said,
6:45 to 6:30.
the daycare center is an allowable use, is that correct?
Yes, the zoning ordinance of West New York qualifies the daycare center in the RM zone as an inherent, as a allowed use, but it calls it a conditional use subject to the conditions that may be posed by the board. In this specific instance of the use is not detrimental to the health, safety, or the welfare of the children, because the applicant has made affirmative actions into allowing to have the front yard driveway to be drop off for the pickup and drop off of children. It's not gonna cause any injury to the neighboring property. Actually, it will enhance the location because there's so many residential uses allowed that it is a use that can be of a neighborhood in character. And it's also compatible with the surrounding uses. So in my opinion, the applicant meets the negative criteria, and the variance, the conditional use approval can be granted without any detriment to the master plan and furthers the intent of the zoning ordinance.
And the inherent public interest justifies or qualifies for the positive
The
criteria, is that
inherently
correct?
beneficial use actually satisfies the positive criteria, and it actually satisfies the special reasons, the purposes of zoning, as well as the positive criteria.
No more questions at this time.
Anybody have any
So
questions?
for 53 kids, there'll be 53 kids altogether. So whether there'll be one, parking area is equal to one car only.
And we're
Drop
not,
off.
Drop off.
Drop off.
Yes, or drop off. So but in winter time, I'm sure even some people live 3 blocks or 5 blocks, whatever, they will suppose it's snowing, they will not walk with the kid.
no, we're not.
Just my concern is,
It snows, they don't even move their car.
yeah.
People don't even move their car. What are you employees doing right now to park their cars when they come down?
And like I said, they're from the neighborhood. One is from Norberg and then just take the bus.
You take a bus?
Yes.
But the other one is family related.
And correct,
There's
we're
a-
gonna make that point, Ms. Calle, you do live in the property, correct? And you live there with your family. Part of your family is our employees in the child.
There's actually a number of municipal parking lots that are owned and operated by the West New York Parking Authority. There's one, I believe, on 54th Street, close to Bergenland Avenue, that's actually quite a large one. There's one on 53rd Street, between 52nd and 53rd, that's a very large one. So there is public parking, owned and operated by the West New York Parking Authority, which is another benefit to the community.
I think one of the good things in this type of operation is that the owner of the property and the owner of the business are one and the same, and that person lives at the location where the business is being run.
It's more of a profession than a business. It's something that goes with her self-esteem.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? Questions? Okay, I'd like to.
I just have a couple of
Okay,
items.
go ahead.
The site, as was testified to, the site was approved a couple of years back,
Right.
with conditions, and one of the conditions was they were to submit zone compliant signage plans. That was apparently never done. When I did the site inspection for this application, the signs that were on site were not conforming. So I just want to make it the plans right now show a conforming sign. I just think we need to reiterate that has to be revised.
So any approval would have that condition?
Correct.
Which is what, to show the sign?
No, to change the sign on the site to be zone compliant.
Right, the current signs are not zone compliant. The signs on this plan are.
So the site has to have the plan exactly like the plan
Like
shows.
they show in these
The signs have to be zone compliant.
Que cambie el letrero lo que-
That would be a condition. Is there anything else, sir?
I think that's all I had on this one.
Yes, I'd like to open up to the public right now.
Any members of the public who'd like to be heard on this application, please come forward. Seeing nobody and hearing
I'd
nobody.
like to make a motion to close it to the public. Motion.
Mr. Chairman, I apologize. The applicant testified that there's gonna be 10 employees, the plans show 8, so we need to have the plans match.
To show 10.
Correct.
Yeah.
This way, someone could compare the resolution and the plans.
We need that chart, we need that chart to balance out.
Is there any other inconsistencies?
That's the only one I found.
What about bathrooms?
There's no,
Mechanical room,
the
handicap
interior one seems
sizes,
to be appropriate.
closets,
Okay.
stairways from the back way,
That's all shown.
it's all shown, okay. All right, I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Second.
Roll call?
Roll call.
David Happily,
Yes?
Rizwan Hamid,
Yes.
Jose Alcantara,
Yes.
Gennaro Sanchez,
Yes.
Miguel Borrego.
Yes.
Thank you, you
Thank
have
you
a
so much.
resolution at the next
Thank you
meeting.
so much, have a good night.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Is there any other business to come before the board? Okay, then our next meeting is when?
May 11th.
May 11th, 2013.
So let's make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming. I'm glad we had a quorum, and I appreciate you folks for being here. I appreciate your service. We know it's sometimes a thankless job. I know Maria.